Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Lola Moore Johnston, and I promised that I would be sharing information and going live a lot more. And I am doing just that. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching live or watching on the replay, I am coming to you in a different manner today. I'm choosing to go ahead and record before I get into the rest of my day because there is a burden on my heart. And so, if you're watching again, I want to say thank you. Please take the opportunity to like this video, to share it. I would really appreciate that. If you're in the Washington, D.C. metro area, in the DMV, it is a blistery, like 20 degrees out there. So that's another reason why I'm going to move quickly as I talk about this today. There's a lot going on outside, and I need to turn my heat off so you won't hear the blowers, but I don't want my pipes to burst, so I can't be on here long. Thank you so much again for watching. I chose to go live after being one of the few challenged individuals who don't necessarily agree with the current political framework, but who also chose to watch the inauguration of the 47th president of the United States in the person of Donald John Trump. And I had a lot of things that I thought about that inauguration. I want to share with you a little bit about that and what it actually pushed me to do. And so, again, if you want to hear that, if you want to process that, you can do that right here. I want to talk about it a little bit and move forward. I've decided I won't disparage the President of the United States. I am going to speak about the policies that I heard, the agenda that I heard, what I witnessed, and how I believe that approach and agenda will impact me as an African American woman in the United States. Okay. Now, I again am not just going to, lay anybody out. But I am going to be honest about how I feel that what I saw and witnessed will impact myself as a Black woman, and how it may impact some others. And so thank you again for watching. Please feel free to like and share. I think that there may be something to take away from this. So on yesterday, I was not going to watch the inauguration of Donald Trump in an effort to protect my mental health and to protect my peace. I said, I'm not fooling with it. But a person who is a digital mentor for me, that's Nick Taliaferro, he made a post that made me think. And that post essentially disparaged people from putting their head in the sand and ignoring what was happening. That there needed to be a subset of people who were prepared to speak intelligently to what is going on and who could challenge the government if they failed to live up to the promise of the Constitution, and things like that. I'm always about holding power structures accountable. And so I said, let me go ahead and take this bitter pill. And it was challenging from the beginning to the end. It was challenging to watch. It was challenging to watch because of my own emotional connection to the, at one point, possibility of having a Black female president. in Kamala Harris. It was challenging because of my understanding of the things that had happened connected with Donald Trump, and some convictions that should have happened, that would have happened if Donald Trump were of a different ethnic background, of a different financial class. And to see him stand in front of the United States and to take the oath of office was challenging. It was challenging to see how the room was situated. You know that the oath of office was administered in a rotunda on yesterday and not outdoors. It has been very cold, but when I saw who was in the room, I am suspicious that the concern was not for the American people being too cold, that it may have more so been subjecting those who are uber rich to uncomfortable climate. Them sitting outside in that kind of cold climate, I think, was something that was seen as untenable, and so they moved it indoors. Sitting at the front of the room, if you've seen any of the pictures, are all of the tech giants. Meta is there. Tim Cook for Apple is there. Jeff Bezos and his wife are there. And then they're sitting with Elon Musk, who's sitting there. I mean, they're all in the front of this room, seated in front of government officials who are actually slated to be there. If you paid attention, tucked in the back was Rudy Giuliani, and he was, in a place where he was hidden, and after having to settle a lawsuit with 2 Georgia poll workers who he had actually disparaged and said that they had been a part of election fraud, he had to actually pay them out a settlement. And I'm thinking that there's like they probably a non-disclosure agreement. They probably NDA. They probably signed one of those, because we haven't heard the numbers of how much the settlement was for anything else like that. I think I know who this person is, but they said, I don't think not watching is putting your head in the sand. I've heard Donald John Trump's position, so watching the inauguration would not add to anything I already know. I chose not to watch, and that is your right. So I'm glad you exercised your right. And lots of people exercise that same right. So in watching what happened on yesterday, it was clear that the future that is envisioned by this room is not just a vision for white people or Caucasian people, but a vision to enrich the 7 people sitting in front of that room. This Donald John Trump's family, and all of these tech millionaires, that the rest of this agenda would be to enrich them, but also to exercise what is called the mandate for leadership. So it became clear to me that as long as those individuals sitting in front went along with the mandate for leadership, that they would get what they want out of this pie, which is becoming richer. But that the conservative party, so-called Republicans, want control so that they can mimic what they believe is a Christian government. So Donald Trump and the people in front control the information stream to people. Their trade-off is to become richer. That trade-off is handed to them from the Republican Party, the conservatives, who in their mind want to mimic what they believe is a Christian government. And so those individuals have joined hands in order to roll out a mandate for leadership. Yes, it is all about wealth and absolutely. And I wrote a post earlier saying that although the rhetoric of race, of sexuality, of gender is going to be utilized, and the implications of these political changes to the quality of life of these individuals is going to be real, that the bottom line is wealth and power, but the specific wealth and empowerment of white men. Okay, white men, that's it. Not white women, not white children. It is white men who seek to be empowered, and they have now seized power in such a way to ensure that white men remain relevant, remain with a majority stake in government, and enrich themselves. Okay, so they are going to talk, they are going to step on every other group of people in order to ensure that white men remain on top and that these specific white men remain wealthy. Okay, that's what I picked up from yesterday. So after watching what Donald Trump put on, right, I recognize that more like the first time it seemed like Donald Trump got in as a fluke. But this time, the conservative leadership was intentional to now get behind Donald Trump in such a way where they would all get into the White House. You know, he was ticking everybody off last time, but this time he's in there with the mandate. Somebody said Project 2025 was very clear for those who chose to read it. I'm going to talk about that right now. It all goes back to Rome, so much like Constantine. Hey, it's huge, okay? So Donald Trump now is going to be skittish, is going to be erratic. He's going to seem to be all over the place. He's going to always say something crazy when he gets in the microphone. I saw somebody write stream of consciousness, conversation type, whatever, up and out is what it really is, but they call it stream of consciousness rhetoric, right? Up and out. But behind that stream of consciousness nonsense, whatever he's saying in the microphone is essentially to incite the masses of disempowered people, namely white men, poor white men, so that now they become the bodies who enact this type of legislation so that rich white men get through, right? So he's going to say whatever he has to say. They are going to say whatever they have to say to make people feel like we got you, we understand, we here, we see what's going on, we are here for you. But essentially, just like January 6th, they're going to be the bodies. They are the casualties. They are the pawns in this whole thing to make sure that the rich white men make it out in the end. Okay, keeping that in mind is so difficult, but it helps me to at least see what is happening with this machine. Yes, this is distraction. Absolutely. So I'm not saying go watch the inauguration. I'm not saying don't. I was sick afterwards. So it was like watching a horror movie for me. I was physically sick. I had to go out. I had to get out of the house and breathe. It was terrible. Okay. It was terrible. But in listening to what he had to say, this guy whew, is in a position now where he feels emboldened to do everything that he has ever promised and more. One of his promises right there on the stage was drill, baby, drill. The other one was we're going to reduce, it's just going to be 2 genders from now on. And I'm like, really? This is going to be interesting. So another thing that he promised was, trying to getting rid of all DEI, everything, getting rid of LGBTQIA, everything. I mean, everything. He's just getting rid of all of that. I'm not saying watch it. At least read something that talks about the talking points and the promises that he made during that speech. Please, just the talking points. After watching that, I started thinking about what it is that I needed to do as an individual. And I saw another post today from a person who is a mentor digitally that talked about reading the Mandate for Leadership. Now, I'll be honest that when I saw that Kamala Harris was running, I thought that she would be the obvious choice for everybody. So I didn't really press myself to read the Mandate for Leadership. And then after she lost, I was in such disbelief that I still didn't go read it. But this morning, I was in the gym, so I decided to start to listen through it. So I found some audio files that allowed me to listen through the Mandate for Leadership. And boy, I am through the first 50 pages. And I am here needing to process what I read. So I'm going to do that by sharing just the 4 pillars that this Mandate for Leadership is based on. And the scariest part is this, and I'll begin here, that I didn't disagree with everything that they said. I did not disagree with everything they said. There were certain points that they made that I absolutely agree with. So I had to check myself there as a Christian, as a Seventh-day Adventist, as a person who, if I were not Black and not female, would probably not be aligned with a lot of the Democratic Party ticket and the Democratic talking points. I didn't disagree with everything in the Mandate for Leadership, but there was enough woven in there where I said, if there's a little poison in it, it's all, untenable. And I think that that's a big piece that we as thinking people, as critically thinking individuals have to grab hold of. If there's a little poison in it, it's not good. Throw the whole thing away. But so many people were willing to take the whole thing, even with the little poison in it. So I'll take my last few minutes to say here. So the Mandate for Leadership, I'm reading here, is a product of more than 400 scholars and policy experts from across the conservative movement and around the country. They're former elected officials, world-renowned economists, and veterans from 4 presidential administrations who have participated in putting together the Mandate for Leadership. There was a Mandate for Leadership given to Ronald Reagan. In the 70s, there's a group of conservative leaders who thought that the country needed to move in a new direction. And so they did something similar for Ronald Reagan. And then the era of Reaganomics came out. Now you can, if you talk about how people in minority communities fared during Reaganomics, then you can assess what will happen with Project 2025 for these same groups, like times 10, essentially. And let me make sure that I'm getting everything clear. The The mandate for leadership is now a 900-page document that is presented to a conservative president in order to guide their leadership. The thought was that day one was going to be too late to start rolling things out, that this needed to be done well ahead of time because the state of the country was in such disrepair that there needed to be clear direction about this. Now, understand that this is not a clear direction coming from the Republican Party. This is not the Republican Party. This is the Heritage Foundation, which is a group of 50 organizations, as well as 400 scholars who even feel that the Republican Party is not what it should be. So these are not elected officials. These are individuals in seats of power and influence who now have the ear of the next president and who are directing this president as to where to go. So this is not the Republican Party. These are individuals who are tired of legislators and the seated Republican Party. They're going to go about, they're hijacking the party and given this mandate for leadership. And the 100 executive orders that Donald Trump signed on yesterday are all in line with what is in here. So let me just share with you the four fronts, the four major areas that the mandate for leadership covers. And I want to encourage you to go and read it yourself. If you're like me, I love audiobooks. I process better when I'm hearing things. So I found something that I could listen to it on. I see the page and I can hear it. So make sure you can download it for free on your phone or anything. It used to be what might happen, but this is now the way that the country is going. So you owe it to yourself as an American citizen to go ahead and read it, see where we are going, but understand what the implications are for you. Okay. So there are four broad fronts that this document addresses. And again, I want to say, I do not disagree with every single line of this document, but there's enough poison in it where I say that I cannot support it wholeheartedly. So the first front is the first front is to restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Okay, man, taken at face value, that's a great statement. I think that the family needs to be supported. I think that it's important to support families. But I recognize that the difference or the rub will be when we start to define what a family is. And this document would define a family as a heterosexual two-parent home. Now, I want you to think of how many families you know that would not fit that group. However you feel about homosexuality and LGBTQIA, let's put that on the shelf. How many groups of people do you know who are living as a family who are not a two-parent home? And this document seeks to protect and put at the center the heterosexual two-parent home. And so if a group of people do not check both of these boxes, a heterosexual two-parent home, then this document is not designed to protect them. Okay? So it eliminates protections for any and all equity initiatives. It's not just sexual orientation, which is what was put out there to make sure the LGBTQIA families, that individual who want to, who identify as trans, who are trying to, have sex changes and stuff like that we're going to deal with them because that's unchristian. But this is not the only distinction that is attacked by the mandate for leadership. It also goes out after any racial equity work, any of it. And it goes after gender equity work. So I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. These individuals want to make sure that people are judged without any you know, color or any gender being included, which is all of our affirmative action work. But affirmative action didn't only deal with people with a non-heteronormative sexual background, but it was also for people of color and also for women, which means that they're getting the women up out of this workplace and they're getting people of color out of the workplace. We knew that the only people who were not questioned as to their merit was white men. So all of these women out here in the workplace, getting the bag, sis, they coming for you. White, black, Hispanic, Asian. If you are a woman in the workplace, then these rollouts are for you. If you are a person of color and you have gotten anything, any scholarships or any kind of wink because of your color, that's for you. And then who they put out and the bodies that they put in front of the cannon were the LGBTQIA people, as though they were just trying to normalize that and try to make, you know, heterosexual love the only type of valid love out there as a Christian principle. But they snuck racial inequity and they snuck gender inequity under there, using LGBTQIA people as the bodies, the pawns. Okay, so all of the equity language in any legislation of the government is going to be erased. All of the equity provisions in the federal government in hiring were erased yesterday. That any kind of provision given to a person based upon their race or their gender is done. Okay, so that's why it's important for us to be knowledgeable, because now we're going to be put out there in the workplace as though our ethnicity does not matter, as though our gender does not matter. And they're going to say, well, the person who is the best for the job is the one who wins. Okay. All right. Here's the second one. To dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. This is how they're talking about streamlining government oversights, spending, and personnel. Small government, making sure that the governance remains in the hands of the people. Essentially, they want budgets and legislation not to be held in Washington. They want to spread it among the people. They feel like those big budgets that the government has at present are so much money that, you know, it's not well regulated. The budgets they're not discussed or anything like that. So they want to defund the government and give government back to the people. So they also snuck in there, though, that legislators who disagree with the direction that the government is taking can be put out versus voted out. So they're going to start to try to put in place measures where a person can just be fired from the government, from an elected position, that somebody in government, essentially the Oval Office, can tell somebody in the government who was elected by their constituents, thank you, but no thank you, you're out of here. You're fired. Give it back to the people. Okay. All right. So in this was also, oh my goodness. Thank you, Jason. He said basically states' rights. You know what that leads. Now that is the way that they were approaching government, essentially to try to vote who could hold slaves and who couldn't hold slaves, where slavery would be legal, slavery would be illegal. Each state had their own governance as to where slaves were legally held. So that's exactly where we're going to. I mean, man. there was a very long spiel in this particular pillar about protecting the humble. So essentially, this group painted themselves as humble individuals from humble beginnings who felt as though the government, the elite they called them, were looking down on them. They felt as though those in Washington were making all of the money and were making all of the rules and looking down on regular, humble people like them. Now, if you look at the number of individuals who are in this document who have terminal degrees, individuals who have been head of major corporations, there's a Walmart, a Walton in there from the Walmart Corporation. I mean, that's a Fortune 1 company, But these individuals paint themselves as humble, regular people who don't want to be spoken down to. And if you remember the rhetoric around Kamala Harris, a lot of people felt like she was speaking down to them, using word salad and everything like that, essentially painting the regular American as a person who speaks plainly, wears overalls and things like that. You don't want somebody who's too educated. You can't trust them. This language is in here. And as they talk about streamlining the government, they also talk about not wanting to relinquish decision making to the elite, that the elite feel that they are better than them. And so it's time to get the elite out of leadership so that regular Americans can be in power. But I didn't see a regular American anywhere on the stage yesterday during that inauguration speech. Everybody was a billionaire except for Donald Trump. He tried to say he was a billionaire, but we realized that, after looking at his tax returns, he was not really a billionaire after all. But he was a multi-millionaire for sure. But regular people, they want to protect regular people like themselves. Okay, I'm looking. He said we would never have to vote again if he was reelected. That's the truth. That's the truth. And so here they're saying, we're gonna return governance to the people. Okay, let's move quickly. Number 3, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. This was craftily done because what we know is the rhetoric around the southern border of the United States. And the bodies that they put in this are those who are coming in from Mexico and from Inter-America. So these are the bodies that are in this wake, but they had a lot to say about China. A lot to say about China and the way that TikTok, which was named specifically here, that TikTok was influencing young people in the United States, which I'm trying to figure out how they're going to work that out. They came directly for TikTok in this particular pillar. But the first day that Donald Trump was in office and clearly there, he worked it out with TikTok. Now China is friends. No mention of Russia and being spied on by Russia, but they say a lot about China and being spied on by China, and the fact that they essentially thought that China had too much of a hand in Africa, too much of a hand in South America. They want to be able to rival the business hand that China has in those areas, and to become competitive with China. So heightened security at the southern border, and then a heavy assertion of power against China and the ways that it's infiltrated U.S. life, i.e. tech. So, and a heavy assertion against tech. They had a lot to say about tech. But I'm also wondering, I wonder if Tim Cook would be using Donald Trump to overthrow Chinese tech so that Tim Cook could personally go to the areas in Africa that have there's a substance in the soil that they use for computer chips and stuff like that. And they want to be able to go and get that. Anyway, last one is to secure our God-given individual rights to live freely. What our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. Now, I think that this is very interesting because the first pillar, if you remember, is to restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. I forgot that the other part, when they talk about protect our children, they talked about abortion rights, and they talked about books in libraries that talk about critical race theory and LGBTQIA. Big. But in this provision, there is a huge assertion to rein in the rights of individuals who are living their own lives, who are living freely, okay, under the name family. But while they want to control the ability of these other individuals to live their lives freely, they say here that they want to secure their own God-given individual right to live freely. But the way that they define living freely and the blessings of liberty is capitalism. And the way that they choose to say that the pursuit of happiness is theirs is through capitalism. They want to be able to grow businesses however they want to grow them and make that money. So they're going to eliminate measures keeping Americans from their way of life, meaning they want to eliminate measures that limit the way that people grow businesses. So those are the 4 pillars. And Lord have mercy, I'm just on page 50. And all of that information came from there. I guess 50 pages is enough, but they just introducing people and all kind of stuff in these first 50 pages, 49 pages. And it says the conservative promise represents the best efforts of the conservative movement in 2023 and the next conservative president's last opportunity to save our republic. Several times in this document, they also named Donald Trump by name. So they're not speaking as though they do not know who the next conservative president will be. They are very clear in this document exactly in 2023 who the next conservative president will be. They are clear that it's going to be Donald Trump. So they work that thing. The Bible says that you have to be sober and vigilant because your adversary, the devil, goes about like a roaring lion, he's seeking who he may devour. And y'all, this mixing the truth with error, I think that's Pastor Hobson. I saw this saying in here before that this is how the devil does it, mixing truth with error. And that's what this document is. It mixes truth with error. And there are people who will hang their hat on one statement that they agree with and not go through the fine print to understand all of the small print that they're also agreeing to. So you got to think, well, I mean, the vote is already done. We're here now. But particularly impacted are going to be our friends who are not in a 2-parent household. Individuals who are not heteronormative, those of us who are not white and not male. We all are going to need to band together. But what I'm seeing among us is that because we might disagree on a particular point, that we don't see our fates as aligned. We are all in the same boat if we are not a rich white man. Period. Oh, excuse me. A rich white, outwardly heterosexual man. If we are not, our fate is the same. And so our attempting to divide ourselves, who are not rich, who are not white, who are not heterosexual, who are not male, we're going to be cannon fodder. I just talked to my associate pastor and talked to him about the fact that we have to do a lot more to beef up our community service presence, because a lot of people are going to struggle in this. For one reason or another, they're going to struggle. There are going to be people who have gotten pregnant, who know in and of themselves that they cannot support another life, but are going to be made to. They're going to struggle. We got to be there as the church. We have to be there to support them. If somebody's asking you, or pastor, what are you going to do? I'm already preaching Revelation, y'all. We're going to be in Revelation for the next 6 months. Okay. So I'm coming from a biblical perspective as well, but I want to be an informed Christian on this. Even though there are people who name their name as Christian, my allegiance is to the God of heaven, who links his allegiance to the least, the lost, and the left. He always champions the poor, the widow, the resident alien, and the orphan. Every time he talks about our duty, he talks about the people who are the widow, the orphan, the resident alien, the poor. You can't extract your Christianity from those groups. And when we have an agenda that leaves those people to the wayside, who penalizes individuals who are not in a 2-parent household, people who are not rich, it's a problem. So I'm going to continue to talk about this, but those are my first 50 pages. Feel free to put a comment in there. Again, I'm at this point railing against and calling out the individual is not enough. We got to call out the whole movement. There's a movement of individuals who, because of 1950s conservative values, which keep a woman in the home and not as an income generating individual, there's going to be a lot of programs that are going to seek to get women out of the workplace and put them back in the house. Everybody who can afford that. Was that ever a benefit that Black people were a part of? Did you grow up with a mom who was at the house? Like how few of us had a home that was functioning, had 2 parents in it, and had a mama who stayed at home? What? But there's a lot of Black people who are in positions of influence, who are championing this rhetoric because they come from privileged backgrounds. It's bad. So I would just want to ask you to be aware. I'm about to go out and get a massage after this, because it takes a lot. You got to take care of yourself. Be aware. I think everybody needs a business. Figure it out. Get an LLC. Figure it out. Get one. Get an LLC, because where you are not protected as a Black person, as you're not protected as a woman, as you may not be protected as a single parent, as you may not be protected as an LGBTQIA plus individual, you can have some businesses by being, or have some benefits by being a business owner. Get a business. Have a business. Start there. Have a business. And some of the stuff that we are going to deal with, we can skirt that way. But we want to talk about some other things too. So thank y'all for listening. Thank you for sticking in. If you're watching live, you're watching on a replay, thank you. We'll keep talking about it. Keep your head up. We have a God that says he'll never leave us nor forsake us. And so I'm just leaning and trusting in him. He's going to get us through this. But thank you so much for your afternoon, for your time. Have a great lunch. And we'll talk again soon, okay? Bye-bye.